Once again, the internet has tricked me into reading Olivie Blake, and I'm disappointed. Hi. I no, and I don't know if this is so much a review as much as like I kind of want to rant about this for a little bit, and I want to rant in a way that hopefully is open to discussion because I need someone to explain to me why people love Alone with You in the Ether because I'm not seeing it. Also, I tried to put a hat on so you can't tell like how which of a hot mess my hair is. You can. Alone with You in the Ether. Before we start, let's talk about some things, disclaimers, etc. I am not a mental health professional. I do not have bipolar disorder. I am just a woman who enjoys a good love story or romance. I'm a woman who struggles and has struggled for years with different mental illnesses, including depression, anxiety. I have severe social anxiety that has only gotten worse as I got older. I've battled eating disorders, etc., etc. So I do tend to enjoy books about mental illness, mental health, how our brains think and work, because I don't think that we always get portrayed well in literature. And I understand that the author herself, I believe she is bipolar, as she states in her author's note. But I just have concerns, questions, some things gave me the ick while reading this, and I'd like to talk about them. There were some things that worked for me, and we can start with those. But I have some issues, and I'd love to talk to anybody, especially if you've read this book, loved this book, and you fall into like the categories of, I don't know, being a mental health professional, having bipolar disorder, or anything like that. I would love to know your thoughts specifically on this because, first of all, mental illness is not a monolith. My experience with this book has nothing to do with anybody else's experience with this book. And like, the world is nuanced, so don't come at me. It seems like this is a much beloved book. Please don't come at me. I'm not here to tell you your book sucks. It just didn't work for me. It just didn't work for me at all. I just kind of want to talk in general about like if things worked for you, tell me why. I'd love to know why because it seems like this book is loved on the internet, and I'd love to know why it's loved. Maybe that'll help me better understand your perspective and why this worked or didn't work. I tried to like write out a sort of organized flow for this, and I'm like, I can't. I just have thoughts, and I want to kind of like word salad them at you, and then I'd like you to kind of talk back to me and tell me what you think about this book. So the story follows Regan, who is an artist who is bipolar and is kind of she's in a relationship, so there is cheating in here. If you don't like cheating, don't read this book. But she's in a relationship, you're in her head through half of it, and you're in her counterpart Aldo's really head for the other half of it. Aldo has his own things that he's struggling with his mental health. He's had addiction issues. He, I believe, has depression and has tried to unalive himself in the past, or at least has OD'd in a way that has almost unalived him. These two people meet at an art gallery and they start this flirtation where they're supposed to have six conversations, and that is it. And eventually, of course, those six conversations get dragged out into more, and there's a love story that follows it. It's not a romance, but it's a love story. So that's kind of the basic setup of this. So you have two people with different mental illnesses that come find each other and find some sort of solace in each other and understanding in each other. And I do enjoy that part of the story. However, it didn't ultimately work out for me in the end. I did love the romantic tension that Olivie Blake creates up through about 61% of this book. I did listen to it, I didn't have it physically. So, about 61% of the way through, it started to fall off for me. Once basically our Aldo and Regan get together, I'm sorry if that's a spoiler for you, but like it's a love story. Once they get together and it's no longer about the tension of small touches and the forbidden and all of that, the story falls off for me and I stop caring and I went back to the things that bother me in general about Olivie Blake's writing that bothered me in the beginning, but then once the chemistry and the tension were being incorporated into the text, I stopped focusing on those things and I really was I was there for Aldo and Regan to like discover each other and do these things. There were these wonderful scenes where they're doing things together in such close proximity. And Olivia Blake does a fantastic job of writing those like little touches and those little moments, when you're with somebody that you shouldn't be with, or like where you haven't solidified that you should be with somebody, those little touches that like make your skin explode. I love that. I thought that was fantastic. However, That's not the entire extent of the book. It wasn't this like happily ever after kind of romance where you can lean on those moments. And I just feel like Olivia Blake tries to do too much. This was my problem with Atlas 6. This is my problem with this, is that I feel like there are too many like big brain thinky women, if you know, kind of concepts and ideas that are being tackled or attempted to be tackled in these novels. Physics, like quantum physics, mathematics, all these big intellectual topics, these things where you really do need to have a incredibly firm grasp on the topic itself to one, even talk about it, and two, talk about it in a way that it comes across uh, to the reader. And I feel like she falls short in that every time. It feels uncomfortable when she tries to write about these really like scientific things in her stories. I've read two, so it's not like I haven't read everything she's ever written, but of the two stories I've read, when she tries to push these really mathematical things or these really quantum physics like concepts, she deals with time travel and bending of time and all this stuff. It doesn't feel, it feels clunky. It doesn't feel like somebody who has a mastery on the subjects. It also doesn't feel like somebody who is confident in what they're writing about. So it just doesn't work for me. Like I can read through it and it feels false. And in the beginning of the book, that was bothering me because it felt like a lot of almost like buzzwords to make it sound smart. And then I kind of forgot about it because I was enjoying the romance. But then as soon as I stopped enjoying what our characters were doing, what Aldo and Regan were doing, I was right back to not enjoying the things that I wasn't enjoying in the beginning of the book. So at the end of the by the end of the book, I was unhappy again. And I know you can't have a book that's entirely based on tension and like the leading up to uh, the romantic crescendo, but that's part of the skill of writing a book like this is getting past that moment where you finally get the characters to be together and continuing to have engagement. That's usually where there's like a third act confusion or whatever. So you get the couple to backtrack and then go forward again and fall back in love. I know romance can be incredibly formulaic, but guess what? A lot of books are formulaic. It's genre fiction has a lot of formulas. Anyway, that's another discussion. We're going to move on. The second thing, and possibly the biggest thing that bothered me very specifically about Alone with You in the Ether, and this is the thing I want like the most discourse on in the comments if I can get it, if you love this book, is the handling of mental health. And there, if you haven't read this, I maybe don't listen to this video, read it, come back, because I'm going to spoil some things. Essentially, Regan is struggling with something that a lot of people, a lot of us who take medications to help control our brains, feels unlike herself on her medications. And that feeling of unlike herself is keeping her from being the creative artistic person that she knows she is. She's kind of lost because the brain that she knows and has existed in her body for most of her life until medication showed up isn't her brain. And I think a lot of us do struggle with that when we take different medications. There can be a numbing or a change, or there's just like a knowing that you are different now, uh, and different hopefully for the better in general, for the safety, for the longevity of your life, for all these things. But also there's this struggle of missing part of you. I hopefully that's making some sense. So I get that the author's trying to tackle in having this discourse on Regan and her medications and how she feels on them. I even kind of can get behind Regan going off her medications like she does and having manic episodes and channeling those manic episodes into her art. But I do feel like this is where I'm kind of scared to say this because I feel like it's going to upset people, but I feel like the handling of this was not done well. It feels almost like the author is condoning going off of your medication. And I don't know if I like that messaging. Now, she does have an author's note at the end of the book that hopefully everybody reads, but I don't know if they do, which is why I don't like how this is handled because I wish it was actually in the text and it's not. But anyway, she does talk about her own personal experience with her own medications, her experience with her own therapist and psychiatrist, and what she has done with her own experience of being bipolar, taking medications, not taking medications, channeling her mental health into other endeavors like writing and how that has helped her tremendously, which I love. Go for that. I love it. I'm not saying there's one course of treatment for every patient and every mental illness, and everybody is different. And I love that she has found a psychiatrist and a support system that works with her specifically to find a treatment option that works for Olivie Blake. Great, love it, kudos. I do appreciate that in the author's note, she says that this is not supposed to be prescriptive. This story is not supposed to be like, go off your meds and everything will be fine. You will make art again and that will be great. But it doesn't say that like in the text explicitly, unless I blatantly missed something because I started to check out by the end because I was so annoyed. It just didn't feel like that messaging that's in her author's note is really in the text itself. And I'm happy to be wrong here, but I just felt like that was missing. And I feel like that in itself is, I don't like that. That gave me the ick. I think that you can celebrate the beauty of your brain as it is and the things that your brain creates and thinks and does and the ways that you see the world differently. But you can also discuss maybe the ways that those those things can also manifest into very bad things, and that perhaps there needs to be balance or more support or more mental health care or something. Like they just, it felt like things were missing from this argument, and I didn't like it. I don't know if Olivia Blake is the author for me, which is fine. She has many a lovely fan, a loving fan. I mean, so she doesn't need me to like her. But I just felt in particular this book and the way that it dealt with a bipolar in particular patient going off their medications just felt like it could have been done better. And like I said, I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments on this book. I'd love to know, particularly if you have similar mental health issues. If you don't want to talk about that, that's fine. You don't need to disclose anything on the internet. But if you have your own personal experiences like these, I'd love to hear them. Whatever you would like to share, especially if you're in mental health, like if you're a counselor, therapist, psychiatrist, I would love to know your thoughts on this book and how it was handled. Uh, I feel like there's so much nuance in this world, and I feel like some of it was lost in this book. And if you didn't read that author's note, I feel like you would have a very different perspective on the book than you do after reading it. And I don't know. I don't think I'm going to be reading anything else from this author. I didn't like a fantasy. I don't like a contemporary writing, and it's not for me. But I thought it was worth discussing. I thought it would be a good discourse. If you have any good recommendations on books that handle mental illness, please let me know. Mental health, um, anxiety, depression, anything. Like throw them in the comments because I do love to read more books about these things. I like be like anybody, I like to be seen in literature. We all like to see ourselves reflected there. And perhaps that's what Olivia Blake was writing. She was writing a story where she can see herself reflected in her experience. And you know what? There's nothing really wrong with that, but I thought it was worth discussing. So if you enjoyed, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in my next video, whatever it may be, because it's my channel and I can do whatever I want. Bye.
So just sit with me, talking to the night until the morning, building chemistry.